We're back, bigger and better than ever. Are you ready for more chills, thrills, and spills?
No, not really.
Just kidding, guys. Welcome back to Boys and Ghouls Film Review. I'm your host, Sarah Stephenson, and this is my co-host, Mike Stephenson.
Hello, how are you?
And today we're reviewing Tucker and Dale versus Evil. For those who have loved Texas Chainsaw Massacre, this is a movie you will love to death.
Literally.
So
Now, wait a minute, let us give an idea what it is.
So let's give you an idea about this movie.
What I was going to say, it's a comedy horror. It's not a horror, but it is a comedy taking the horror, turning around and make it hilarious. So, take it away, Sarah.
Yes, so it takes place with a bunch of college students who just came out there to do a bit of hanging out, camping, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, or whatever you consider fun.
Well, all the above.
All the above. Yeah, so they came down there to hang out, and they meet these two hillbillies, and their imaginations grow rapidly wild, literally, and start thinking that they're
homicidal maniacs. Now, but being fair, though, they weren't too bad, but their leader, the head school kid, student.
His name's Chad, just so you know.
Yeah, Chad the moron. He had the thing about hillbillies, and he kept manipulating them and feeding information to them to make them scared of hillbillies and being out in the bushy area in hillbilly territory.
Quite right. And he feeds this information, and then while late at night, they all decide to go skinny dipping, which is a bit odd because in this scene
they kept their clothes on.
Yes, so it's a bit odd there. The only one that probably was skin dipping was the dumb blonde named Chloe, I think.
See, I think she might have been topless, but we're digressing. These kids decide to go skinny dipping down at the local river or whatever it is, river or creek, and Dale and Tucker, our two heroes of the piece, are down there doing some night fishing, being innocent as they are, nice, good country lads, and everything goes wrong about now.
Yeah, and that's as you said, Mike, that's pretty much what happens in the story. So let's I'll dig a little deeper in this story. They start going to the cabin, and it resembles exactly like you would look at Evil Dead or The Cabin in the Woods, which we might review later on if you care to listen to our podcast.
Yeah, we might do that. But the crappy old rundown cabin, they think it's marvellous. It's a holiday mansion.
But to the holiday kids, it looks as rundown as well, just run down, pretty much.
It's terrible. But anyway, irrespective.
Irrespective, yes.
But anyway, they get there about the same time, and then everything
goes to pot.
Well, actually, I will throw, not necessarily spoiler, but the tone of the movie is it's a role reversal. What we have is, instead of the innocent college kids coming up and being killed off by the country guys,
and they become heroes,
and become heroes by saving themselves or whoever's left over from the naughty hillbillies. The hillbilly guys are really the innocent victims of the mean, horrible college kids. A really good, fun reversal. What do you think?
I agree, Mike. I mean, it does sound like it had an interesting story where a lot of slashes, the ones you probably watched, like Chainsaw Massacre and Friday the 13th and all the other ones.
Movies.
All the other ones that you may think of that deal with silly college kids, silly storylines, and then silly decision making when you think about it.
Before we go too much on from here, this movie, the story was written by Eli Craig, who wrote the screenplay along with a Morgan Jurgensen, who I believe was one of the producers, and Eli Craig actually directed the movie as well. Now, Tucker and Dale versus Evil, which is the name of the title of the movie, was done in 2010. Eli hasn't done too many things, I don't think, but this was his
Baby.
his first one, his debut, as they might call it, in the film industry. And I think as the first off film, it comes up pretty damn good, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, and as you mentioned it, Eli and his wife, Sasha, they made a cameo in this at the beginning and at the end of the movie, and
As a film crew.
yes, as
Yeah,
a
film crew.
cameraman and a reporter, just so you know. And which is kind of cool when you think about it, putting themselves inside the film itself,
And actually,
just like something out of Alfred Hitchcock.
and that's really interesting because it starts off with the film crew coming to the scene of a massacre, murder scene, whatever, with the police and everything. And then everything else is, the rest of the movie is the flashback, and it brings it back up to this point
Yeah,
at the end of the movie.
kind of cool.
Yeah, so it's quite well done.
I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, it's really kind of brought your mind into attention. I mean, the whole point of that sort of thing. I mean, the one thing I like about horror movies is that the way to the beginning of the movie, you get a bit of a jump scare or scare itself, and that kind of draws you in the story.
Yeah, it's some people think they let too much information out too early in the movie, but this is a comedy, and they want to keep people interested in it. So there are jump scares. And what do you call when you get a funny thing happen? That's like jump scare. Obviously, it's a trick or whatever you want to call it.
A trick or something.
Yeah, something. Yeah, to make it interesting. Oh, I didn't see that one coming. That was really funny.
Yes,
and let's move
something
on
that
to the next problem.
makes your heart
Yeah.
jump into your throat, so to speak.
And then have a good chuckle about it afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we won't tell you every one of these funny little thingies, but we will touch on a couple of them to give you an idea
I'll
what
give
to
you.
expect.
Yeah, here's one part of the story I really, really love.
This one of the...
No. I mean, I'm thinking of a scene between two characters.
Okay, good,
This one
good.
bit of the story that comes to mind is when Dale falls in love with one of the college students, and she's pretty cute, and
lovely.
she's what you would consider a final girl type material.
No, she's pretty... she was a lady called Alison, and Katrina Bowden played the role. And she was a very attractive lady.
Yeah. Down to-
And I think she really suited the final girl sort of,
Yeah, see, Dale kind of saved her from drowning, and that's where the whole thing starts rocketing in the wrong direction
and all
for
the
every
other college
character.
kids thought, oh, he's attacking her, and they all ran away.
Yeah.
And they had to take Alison back to their cabin to look after her until they could contact the college kids.
Yeah,
And say, hey, we've got your friend here.
Yeah,
Is she okay?
I think
Yeah.
one of them let slip that they thought they saw Dale
eating
her face, which I think they misinterpret as mouth to mouth.
Yeah, he'll
maybe.
do a mouth to mouth trying to revive her, and they said in the dark it looked like he was eating her face. Now, hello,
A
moronic.
little bit of logic comes
Yeah.
to mind.
Did anyone bother going to ask or check? Considering there's something like 6 college kids and 2 hillbillies, hello. Safety in numbers?
Yes,
but
exactly.
No, they just jumped to the wrong conclusions all the way through the movie.
Yeah, they did. And they even, much later in this movie, they thought she would be the result of a Stockholm...
No. When they actually when the other college kids actually come and find her at the cabin, and she say, no, you got it all wrong. These guys are really good.
Yeah, they really
And
saved
one
her.
of her friends says, oh, I've read about this. You're suffering the Stockholm syndrome, which is where a captive person starts to build a relationship, but with the
bad guy.
the bad guys, because they're reliant on them for their well-being and food and whatever. And says, no, these guys are really good. No one believes her, and they don't want to know. They believe Chad, who's a moron.
Yeah, he practically fed them a lot of weird dialogue throughout the movie.
Yeah, spurring them on to do evil things. But
Saying
Yeah.
stuff like, this is our time, this is, sort of just like the Goonies where Mikey says his pep talk saying, this is our time, we should be doing this our way, not the way our parents should do it, all that stuff.
Yada, yada, yada.
Yada, yada, yada. Only in Chad's case, it sounded like it bordered on
He's psychotic.
Psychotic.
But we won't go on it because there's a bit of a twist at the end of the movie, isn't there?
Yes, a very good one. That.
Anyway,
So, I'll move on to my favorite scene in this movie, where Tucker is cutting into a log, and
yeah.
these kids are just out front of the cabin. You see.
Yeah, and Tucker's around the back of the cabin, so they can't see what he's doing.
Yes, and you hear the chainsaw, and then Tucker cuts into either a beehive or a wasp nest, and then the beehives start buzzing all over the place, and he's swinging down his buzzsaw over the place.
Yeah, and he's running with the buzzsaw, much reminiscent of
Leatherface.
Yeah, what's Hodder's name?
What?
The guy who played Leatherface. What's his first name?
Sorry, it's
Hodder.
Hodder something.
What's his first name?
It slipped my mind.
Anyway, the guy who plays Leatherface, something Hodder, I can't remember his first name. The way he was running around during the movie, swinging the chainsaw around. Well, Tucker's doing the same thing, trying to scare the bugs away, and the college students see him say, "Oh no, he's going to cut us up little pieces," and they start running away.
Yeah, and he was chasing after a boy named Mitch, I think his name is.
I think so, yeah. I didn't worry about all their names.
Yeah, me neither.
They were cannon fodder.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I do mention member Mitch, and I mention member Chloe. Chloe's the dumb blonde I told you about.
They always have a dumb blonde, don't they?
Yeah, so anyway, as we're saying, Mitch is running through the woods, Tucker's following, or not following, they're running sort of...
together, side by side
Side by
almost.
side, almost.
And this guy, young guy, who's not looking where he's going, runs into
a tree branch.
Which is sticking out in the wrong way, and gets you straight through the chest.
Yeah.
And he's the first of many deaths.
Yeah, and when the other students find him, they assume that Tucker
impaled
him there.
Yeah, why the hell he had a chainsaw? Why just cut him up in little pieces?
Yeah,
it's ludicrous. It's fun.
Yeah, well, they weren't there, so they didn't really see the whole what happened. So that's the whole point of this movie. You see things and that leaves you wondering. Your imagination leaving you wondering a lot.
Yeah, and you realise at the end of it that these college kids were just so stupid. Considering they're supposed to be educated kiddies going to university or college, college,
I think.
College kids. I'm about 20 years old, so I'm not quite sure how the education system is in America. They're about 20 years old, so senior college or whatever. But they're supposed to be bright little students.
Yeah.
Not.
Yeah. So, it gets really interesting. I think my other favorite bit was when one of the kids came at Tucker in another scene with a sort of small pocket knife.
Pocket knife, yeah. But a real small one, one that just fold open. I used to call them pen knives here in Australia. But
so sort of pretty much a small pen knife, and he comes at Tucker, and he has this wood chipper thing.
Yeah, he's putting tree branches into it, and this student runs at Tucker, and just when he gets there, Tucker doesn't see him. Tucker bends down to get another branch. When this young guy tries to tackle him. Well, what happens, Sarah?
He jumps head first into the wood chipper.
And all you see is your legs dangling out and everything
else. And all the other kids think that Tucker is pushing him in.
While Tucker's actually trying to pull him out.
Yeah, and pretty much you only see him as a half of what he used to be.
Well, no, he made a comment. They finally get him out of there, and they said, we better hide his body, where Tucker and Dale tried to pull him away. And he says, he's very heavy for half a man or something or other. Half a guy. But see, I think from about his navel upwards, there wasn't too much of him. Just his hips and a pair of legs.
Yeah. It was hilarious. And like always, the kids got the wrong end of it again.
Yeah, and again.
And again.
And again.
And again.
And again.
Yeah, until it just gets really messy and a little bit funny.
Very messy. Blood and guts and gore and everything.
Yeah, at one point I won't go into more details. It's too good even for me to mention it because it's worth watching on your own.
Yeah, we won't tell you too much. If we give too much away, we'll tell you the whole story. Now, but I mean, honestly, there was a funny bit there I really liked.
Okay, go on. Spill.
One of the college students says, "Look, I'll go and get help. I'll go get the sheriff." and he's obviously a coward, didn't want to stay there.
Of course.
And he said, "What about something else going?" He says, "It's my father's car, and I'm the only one allowed to drive it." So that was a good excuse. Anyway, he comes back later with the sheriff,
Yeah.
and that's about the same time that Tucker and Dale are pulling this half a body along the ground. And the sheriff looks at them and walks up and says, "Yeah, what's happening?" And says, "You wouldn't believe this, Sheriff. We've had a really lousy day. These kids are committing suicide all around us." And the
Yeah.
sheriff says, "Do you take me for an idiot?" I says, "No, well, we've got their friend inside." And he says, And because that's what she's been there because she's convalescing. And the sheriff goes inside innocently to go there and talk to them and talk to Alison and say, right, okay, and get her side of everything. Accidentally inside the cabin, there's a loose pole holding the roof up, and the sheriff leans on it, and then a beam swings down and hits him in the head, and he's got these 4-inch nails poking into his skull, and he staggers out towards this police car where the students
Yes,
are,
another
and he
misinterpretation.
dies, and they think Tucker and Dale done it again.
Yeah, meaning they think that they
Yeah,
stabbed him with that
Yeah,
thing.
hit him in the head with these 4-inch nails on a piece of wood. It just goes on and on like this all the way through the movie. Just a situation of these funny little events, and it does. Excuse me, a bit of a cough here. A bit of sinus trouble. I'm not dying of this coronavirus thing.
Don't go that far.
But anyway, but yeah, all the way through the movie, the continuity is really good because it leads one thing to another. The storyline flows really good. And after so many people being
Mishaps.
killed off, they end up back at the cabin with Alison, the girl who nearly drowned.
Yeah,
who'd
and this
been looked
leads up to
after.
the bit we were talking about the Stockholm syndrome
Yeah,
thing.
but we don't go. We won't go there again. But they're in there, and she's trying to act as a mediator between Dale
And Chad.
and Chad. Say, sit down there and explain your side of things. And Chad goes, "Well, when my mother was here 20 years ago, she told the story a bit about hillbillies killing her and killing her boyfriend, and she got pregnant because she got raped by a hillbilly, and in the end, her friends who tried to save her come in there, and
A grass clipper thing.
Excuse me.
What's it called?
I think it was what do you have now?
I wasn't sure of what it
I
was.
think it's like a whippersnipper or
Yeah,
something.
whippersnipper, yeah.
Yeah, a brush cutter or something. And he goes in there to get somebody. He misses and he hits one of the students in the face with it. They do
Yeah.
something else. And then somebody catches on fire accidentally. And is it the dumb blonde? She picks up something that looks like
Yeah,
water.
I think she picked
which
up...
is probably methylated spirits
Yeah.
or mineral terps and threw it at him to put the fire out and set him more on fire.
Yeah.
And then the stuff on the fire from the fire dribbles on the floor to where they got petrol cans and everything else. And there's a throwaway line saying, "I think we should take those outside before." And a few minutes later, the whole place blows up. But yet,
Yeah.
Tucker, Dale, and Alison
Yeah.
manage to escape just before it blows up. And they
Yeah.
think, "Oh, okay, everyone is dead.
Yeah.
What a shame." And then Chad, the naughty guy, for some reason didn't get totally blunt, but his face is burnt and everything. And he gets up and he walks out, takes a shot of his puffer, his Ventolin. He's an asthmatic. Actually, that plays an important part in the storyline. He's an asthmatic, but he's also allergic to chamomile tea, we found out.
Hint, hint.
And Tucker has a very, very, no, not Tucker, Dale has a
Dale.
very, very good memory for trivia. And that plays a good part later on, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's... Alison, well, in this movie, as I mentioned earlier, that Alison does grow really fond of
Dale, yeah.
and she finds him really smart and
In a funny way.
in a funny way, and of course, Dale thinks he's not good enough for her because
She's sophisticated and everything else.
Yeah.
He's just a country bumpkin. And he's not really, he's just a nice, easygoing
Yeah.
country guy who probably never got too far ahead in schooling because he thinks a bit differently, but he's really smart. He sucks up a lot of knowledge.
yes,
He's
and
really smart in his own
yeah,
way.
and Alison mentioned to him that she's also came from a farm, and she also knows how to take care of herself.
Yes, she was. So she grew up on a farm. It's a case of do your bit or get out. So she knew her way around a farm properly. So
Yeah.
being up country in that sort of area was not new to her.
Yeah, so
And,
she
and,
was.
and she was starting to get a nice bond with Dale because he is a genuinely nice guy, and she could see through the country bumpkin hillbilly bit. And in the end, well, there's a bit of a surprise ending there. But anyway,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
anyway,
I like
like
the closeness when it gets.
yeah,
It
and
gets.
she realised he was a nice guy because he saved her life, and he was looking after her and just talking to her, and she realised, yeah, nice guy.
Yeah.
And anyway, we get back to where Chad comes
Yeah.
out of the building.
Yeah.
Chad goes out and he chases them, and the three of them, Tucker, Dale, and Alison, jump into Tucker's car and try to drive away. Dale's driving the truck, and they smash into a tree. Well, and then he wakes up a bit later, and Tucker's there. He's not feeling very good. Might have had a busted rib, broken arm. I can't remember.
Yeah,
But
and
Alison's not there. Now, this is the part that bugs me.
okay, go ahead, Mike.
Tucker is on the ground outside the vehicle. Alison was in the middle. Dale was still behind the steering wheel. Now, if Chad went in there and he was a homicidal maniac
Yes.
and he kidnapped Alison, why didn't he just kill Tucker and Dale?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
He didn't. He left them. He left them alone, and he dragged Alison off.
Oh,
And interesting.
it is interesting.
No one ever queried that, did they? But anyway,
Irrespective, it does make for an interesting story.
Because obviously the story has to go on a bit further. So what happened then, Sarah?
Well, Tucker sits him down and tells him how they were when they were young. He reminisced about good times, as well as telling him that you're not as dumb as you look, or
Oh no, he's not. He says something like, "You're not as dumb as you think you are."
Yes.
That's a really sort of nice backhanded comment.
yeah. He also mentions our way into it that when they were young, they used to catch frogs in the river. The creek, and they'll mention that he used to lick them.
Even though it made him
yeah.
sick, but I think Tucker encouraged him to lick the frogs.
Yes. So, this is outside information. I found out that the actor, what's his name?
Which one, Dale or Tucker?
Dale.
Dale, he is Tyler Labine.
Yeah, Tyler Bean actually did lick a toad in a small role
A
he had
toad or
on
a frog?
a toad.
Ugh.
He had in a small role in one of the episodes of The X-Files in 1996.
Oh wow! Didn't know that.
You
He
learn
must
something
have
new every
He
day.
must have been a lot younger.
Most likely.
Well, no, this is 2010. So yeah. But anyway, look. Tyler Labine played a really, really good role in this. But we're not finished yet.
Yeah.
And he's sort of like the soft. A soft, gentle, cuddly guy that wouldn't hurt a fly, and you got to take on the mean guy, which is going to come up in a minute.
Yeah, this is just like in those Final Girl movies where you start off your ordinary self.
Yeah, he's a final girl, isn't he? Sort of.
Well, the final
He's the final boy.
yeah. So he's like he's the hero. He grows, in not only in brains but in a little bit more what to do, and and eventually he knows that he can beat this guy.
He does. So he had a dog through this movie, a Jangas or something or other. Jangas, and he just beautiful cuddly
Yeah,
old thing.
he's a gorgeous puppy.
But anyway, he with the help of his faithful hound dog, Wolf, they trace Alison and Chad to. I don't know if it was deserted sawmill. It looked like it had been deserted.
Yeah, it looked like it to
Even
me
though all
too.
the stuff was still there and like cobwebs.
Yeah, and not to mention Carl.
Don't forget the tea. Okay? But anyway, now Alison is tied up on a log on a saw bench next to a big buzzsaw.
Yeah.
Now, if Chad was going to try befriend her and woo her, I can understand part of this. Be my girlfriend or I'll cut you in half.
Well,
that is not a good way to endear yourself to somebody.
Well, if you watch those old, I go back many years when I think about this, where the villain traps a the heroine and puts her on a buzzsaw. You've seen
And
those.
then the hero comes along
and then the
there
hero
and
comes
sees her.
along,
Pretty
and
much like that.
yeah, it's sort of like those old movies
Along came
where
Jones.
where the villain is a mustache twirling baddie guy and always wearing black.
Yeah. Like Snidely Whiplash in the cartoon, so.
Yeah. Yeah, roughly exactly like that.
But anyway,
But
they're there, and Dale gets there, and he says, "Right, now I'm gonna
kick your butt.
kick bum." But he says, "Okay, I'm gonna get some gear here." He went here, and he found some stuff in the storeroom, and he strapped all his gear on, and
and a welder's
welding
mask.
and spiky things on his
Feet.
like the thing you use when you're climbing trees and stuff. And he got a chainsaw and everything. And then he walks through the door, and Chad isn't there, but Allison's there, and she freaks, not knowing who it is. Not another one. And she says, "Oh, it's only me. Do I look intimidating?" And she says, "Yeah."
And he's saying, "Sweet."
Sweet, yeah.
And that's what I have often said in the past when I'm like really happy about something, like saying sweet.
Anyway, a battle ensues.
Yes.
Dale and Chad are at it.
Yeah.
Quite good. And
chainsaw
obviously
against chainsaw, so to speak.
Chainsaw against pipe.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
only one chainsaw. But at that point when they're fighting, Chad turns on the buzzsaw and the feeding bench, so it's gradually getting closer and closer. So Dale has to really work hard to
try to get her off the bench.
He does accidentally. He picks up
An axe.
An axe that I think Chad threw at him. He threw it to try to hit Chad. Went straight past him, hit the ropes and cut the ropes that were binding Allison to the log.
Close.
Lucky.
That was lucky.
Yeah. But anyway, she gets off there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
They kind of
They escape Chad.
They escape Chad and they head into another room.
They run upstairs. Why they always run upstairs where there's no escape point? Yeah. I do not know. Well, I would run out the door and head for the bushes. But no, they run upstairs to an office.
Well, I guess it's usually the final confronting, and they want to make it look more kind of. And not to mention, it's this part comes as a bit of the interesting twist that comes to mind in this scene.
But anyway, they're up there, and they lock themselves in there a little bit, and they're looking around for weapons and stuff. And while Dale's looking for weapons, he finds a box of chamomile tea.
Hint, hint.
Now, wait a minute. And while he's doing that, Allison finds an old newspaper from 20 years ago about the murders which happened there. And there's a picture of the murderer, this hillbilly guy who killed everybody, and it's the spitting image of Chad. And then the penny dropped that Chad was the offspring of the mad hillbilly who killed everybody 20 years ago. That would explain why he isn't wired properly.
Mm-hmm. Aha. And then Chad comes bursting in and planning on killing both Allison.
Yeah, he had the chainsaw in his hand.
Yes, and Dale shows him the article, and well, you get what happens next.
He said, "It can't be." Yeah, it's a bit like Luke Skywalker. That's impossible. You can't be my father. Well, same sort of scenario.
Yeah, but only a lot more. Like
Luke Skywalker didn't have a chainsaw.
Yeah, and he's in more denial, but at the same time, he's more angry that.
And he still wants to kill them, even though he's a hillbilly like Dale. Yeah. So what happens is Dale, smart fellow, because he remembers everything, had the chamomile tea in his hand and threw it in Chad's face, and he starts having an immediate allergic reaction to it. He can't breathe, he's choking, and he falls out. Some barn doors on the first level and ends up on the ground outside. That reminds me of is it Jason? It didn't happen to Jason. One of the things he fell out. Oh, he's down there. And then looked later on, he'd gone for a little walk. And this happened the same thing.
Just so, before he falls down, Dale being the nice Samaritan guy, or good Samaritan, I mean, he says, don't worry about him. We'll get his inhaler and he'll be right as rain. But then, of course,
he falls out the window.
Being the good Samaritan, I always think that Dale is always
actually getting on the good Samaritan part. Just going backwards to halfway through the movie. When the police guy died, one of the students, being really brave, grabbed the the sheriff's gun, and he picked it up and he went over and he held it, pointing at Tucker and Dale, and says, "Be still, what he said to him," and Dale, being such an innocent guy, said, "You can't do anything with it unless you take the safety off." And the guy's, so he turns around looking for safety, took the safety off, the gun's pointing at his face and the accent he pulls trigger,
Bow.
and another one bites the dust.
That was really an awesome kill.
And Tucker says, why the hell did you tell him that? Well,
Yeah, well, technically, that death was all that guy's fault.
It was so funny.
You know,
but why tell the guy's going to kill you how to kill you? That's, poor old
Yeah,
Dale.
well, technically, it wasn't Dale or Tuck's fault. I mean, it was the kids holding the guns' fault.
Yeah, well,
Holding in the wrong direction.
You don't look at guns that way. See, these kids weren't really bright.
Of course
But anyway,
not.
going back to where we are in this sawmill.
Yeah.
Anyway, they sort of from there. Does it jump to the police?
It cuts to the
The police and everybody
police
there.
and everyone there trying to work out what just happened.
And you got a news broadcaster who was there at the beginning saying it looks like it was a suicide pact and a killer and everything else. So Tucker and Dale aren't guilty of anything in the eyes of the
meaning
police
they
or
were
the
probably
media.
released off without getting charged and everything or whatever.
And they believe their story, which is highly implausible. Most of the time they blame the hillbillies whether they're right or wrong.
Yeah, and there's no other witnesses to testify whether or not Tucker and Dale have done anything wrong.
They didn't anyway. But her point remains is that it's going really good there. Do we tell them about what's next bit? Was it in the hospital?
They're in the hospital.
Yeah. And Tucker's there in bed and he looks a bit dreamy-eyed and Dale comes in and says, how you doing? And Tucker says something like,
high on medication.
I'm high on prescription drugs. It was,
Medication.
It was really good. And
Medication, he said.
Yeah, prescription medication. And Tucker brings him out a beer and he puts a straw in it for him. So there you go, I'll bring you back one later. And while they're talking, Tucker says, well, did you ask Alison out on a date? And he said, no, well, didn't get around to it. And he said, and Tucker's going, I don't know. You
What am I
like
gonna
the
do
girl.
with you?
Why don't you do something? He says, well, we are going bowling this afternoon because she said she liked bowling. He had a big smile. I see you later. He walks out the door. So
Yeah.
they're at the bowling alley.
Oh,
no.
wait! Before we go to the bowling alley, I want to go back a bit more again, and once maybe a little further back. I mean, there was a scene where Chad chops off Tucker's ring. I mean, his fingers, two of his fingers. I can't tell.
He's two. On his right hand.
Yeah.
He said his bowling fingers.
Yeah.
It's his two small fingers on his right hand, and they actually got there and they brought them back and they sewed them on.
Yes, and guess what else?
One of them looks like a female's finger.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Chloe's fingernail.
He says
when I
at the
think
throwaway
about it.
line, saying, I don't remember that finger.
Yeah, it's got red nail polish, so you won't be confused. If you can.
It looks strange, but it was a funny scene, that one.
Yeah.
But anyway, they're at the bowling alley.
Okay, we're back at the bowling alley.
And they're having, and Dale, during the movie, Alison had fallen off a rock and hit her head.
Yes.
And was knocked out.
Yes.
And then during the movie, did Dale knock her out once or twice?
Twice.
He knocked her out twice, accidentally.
Accidentally.
So he said, I've got a present for you. And it's a pink bike helmet. To crash helmet, so to protect the head.
Yeah, well, if they're going to hope for a second date, they're...
Just in case.
Just in case.
But then, anyway, this really weird-looking, strange-looking hillbilly guy comes over and talks to Dale there, and Dale says, yeah, you should believe in yourself and go after what you want and everything. And he said, yeah. So he wanders off to the next lane or two and accosts a couple of girls over there. And guess what? One of them gets knocked out and he starts to drag her off. And Dale and Alice look at each other and they said something like, you going to do anything about it? They look back at their mate, says, nah. And then did they kiss them?
Yeah, they kissed. Actually, they kissed twice in this scene.
Yeah, it was so sweet.
The first one was before the knocking out bit, and the second one was after.
Yeah, but anyway, then it goes back to the site of the massacre, and the cameraman and the reporter lady are going through, trying to get more information, trying to make it, G it up so they can do a really good investigative reporting thing. And just when they're going into the building, what happened?
Get whacked.
Who by? Chad. They haven't found Chad yet, and he
Yeah,
killed both of
yeah,
them.
just so you know, guys know, this scene came at the beginning, and just way to the end, they kind of were
Yeah,
just doing a brief before they went off to
yeah,
check out the
go to
site.
the building and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, go for
so
the
it's quite
building.
good. I mean,
So
the start and the end were at the same time.
yeah, so it was a
Yeah,
sort of
everything was retrospective. Well,
yeah,
most of the movie was anyway.
oh yeah, I
But
thought it was
anyway,
incredible.
hang on. His sinuses give me grief.
Yes, yes. I thought I might bring up this sort of thing. In on the DVD, you know, if you got the DVD already, it may have it has a special feature on the DVD
Oh, I didn't know
player,
that. Yep.
the movie from the college kid's perspective, in which Tucker and Dale are the murderers in this one, meaning that the footage is all taken from the kid's perspective, not so much as the end.
So it was a full length movie, is it?
Probably half of
Oh,
half of it.
a featurette or something.
Yeah,
Okay.
where it leaves you. Well, it may not be.
A bit like a traditional movie.
Yeah, like if you
Okay.
just stick to the college kids where they just come there, pack, probably sucking faces
Yeah.
on each other,
Yeah.
you know, by kissing, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then all hell breaks loose, and then keeping to the natural order of slasher films leaves everyone wondering what's all this stuff what's going on here.
Okay. Now I'm going to take go for a minute. This movie was said to have only taken about $5 million to make, and only made about 4.7 million at the box office. Now I don't know. Well, look, it wasn't a mainstream movie by my standards, so obviously that might have held back the ticket sales a bit. But I don't think anyone gave it a fair chance because it was a good movie for what it was. Yeah, it was a parody, it was a send up, but I mean, Scary Movie was a send up, wasn't it?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and it made money.
And just so
Yeah.
you guys know, this film was probably shelved for 3 years until much later on it was finally released, which gets me wondering why the heck did they keep it locked up for so long instead of just release it generally, like any other film out there. What do you think, Mike?
Sorry, I wasn't. I was drifting away then.
I'm talking about how come they kept it locked away and not
they shelve it.
offer to shelf
Sometimes I think it's an
release
appropriate
it.
time to release something, or yeah. It's I don't know. Yes, no. Yes, no. Yes, no. I think it went through a film festival. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
they did,
and
and
they had a good response
it
there.
got a good
but,
response
yeah.
there, but
But that was about it.
there was no mainstream release,
No.
not the proper
So I
one.
think it was a limited independent type release, sort of through independent
it was
theatres or
just
something.
it was just directly released to DVD, and there you have it.
Well, it
when you
didn't,
think
it didn't
about
go direct to DVD.
Well-
They had a limited run through independents probably,
yeah.
and then went to DVD or whatever things went to. But
But-
it just came out. See, we're talking about production and different things, and you look. Production actually began in June in 2009. That with the casting of the actors and whatever. The photography started a month later, so that would have been July 2009. And in October it was in post production, so they only took a few months to make the movie. Which, when you think about some movies, say we took 10 months or 12 months to make the movie. He did it in a very short period of time. Like somebody I know and love very dearly, sitting next to me now, she made her own movie, which is coming out in a couple of months' time.
Yeah.
And she put the storyline together, wrote the script, held the auditions, it got into filming in June of last year. It was finished in, October?
Yeah,
October?
roughly.
Finished in October, but we weren't filming every week. We were doing
Yeah, as much as we
when we
could.
could, but the actual filming amounts of days, the actual filming days, probably only about 2.5 weeks of filming days in all that period. The rest of it was there. We had the breaks we had to hire and release the sites we had to film at. And now it's in post production. She's done it all. So I'll have to look at Sarah and say, job well done. And I'm pleased to be her father. Oh my God, I can say I'm your father. Oh, gee, they don't think I'm your brother with a voice like this. Lucky it's not a video. But no, see, so you can do it in a short period of time if you're organised. And yeah, all I'm saying is this guy, Eli Craig, has proved he can make a really good movie in a short period of time.
Quite right.
And Sarah can do it, and other people have done movies in a short period of time. You just cut all the crap out. Pardon the language. Okay?
Well, it's not exactly swearing.
Well, no, but the point is, if you get into it and you don't waste time, you can achieve a lot in a small amount of time. We reviewed a movie recently. It was in 10 months from start of filming to the end of filming. And I tried to work it out. It worked out about a minute's filming per day. To me, that's a gross waste of money. If you go down to 1 minute a day, 1 minute a day, that's 7 minutes a week. What are you guys doing? If filming started, your sets should be already made so you can actually film. Where's the problem?
Good question.
A lot of wasted time and wasted money. So yeah, shoestring budget doesn't mean a shoestring quality.
True. Yeah. So back to the actual movie itself.
But we were talking about Eli. So,
Yes. Another thing about this movie, in one of the scenes, what's the name of Dale's character again?
Tyler Labine.
Tyler Labine ad-libbed in one of his scenes some of his lines where he says, "They hate my face."
Yeah, well, ad-libbing's good. I mean, he owned the part. He felt the part, and it seemed appropriate. And actually, a lot of people over the years have done that.
Yeah, in my feature film, most of my actors have approached me and asked me, could I ad-libbed a bit of some of the scenes.
Yeah.
I say as long as it's fits in with the
script
film
and the period.
In the period.
Because the movie that Sarah's made is a 50 style movie in the 50s. Now you wouldn't use 2020
you wouldn't,
slang.
Yeah, you wouldn't say swear
70,
words.
70. Well, you could, but the swear word would have to be appropriate for 1950, not 2020. So the words had to be
fit.
Yeah. But there wasn't any swearing in your movie, I hope.
No, zero swearing. Not that I'm boring anyone.
No, point. But the point, yeah, it's retaining credibility and belief in the period. If you do a sci-fi 100 years in the future, you would expect people to be a little bit more progressive. Not, I'm a backwoods hillbilly like Dale and Tucker. It'd be obviously different. And if you take someone and do a period movie 500 years ago, you couldn't have them contemporary like we are now. So I think the people in this movie suited the roles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing I found out in the movie, guys, is that they did some when they were doing product placement, the only thing that they used was the beers that Tucker and Dale have drunk throughout the movie.
Well, I didn't see the labels clearly, and I don't know all the beer brands in America.
Neither. Yeah.
I didn't have a look at the shop they went into where they had Coca-Cola and stuff hanging around and other things on the shelf. But
yeah, there was one scene where Dale and Allison were playing. They were playing a game called Trivia. No, they couldn't. They didn't get the product placement for Trivia Pursuit, so they had to make up. Trivia. So they made up a game called based off that game.
Yeah, they're called Trivia or something.
Yeah,
and we get back to Dale retaining a lot of information. He blitzed it. He was just so clever. He was a sponge for useless information and made him really good at this game.
Yes, exactly so. And there were some other product placements that they couldn't buy, but they had to replace it with their own version of product placement. We'll make it up as they go along.
Yeah, but a can of beer having beer written on it.
Yeah. Well, they bought the product, the brand itself.
See, the whole point,
that was cool.
if you do product placement and you do that, you would think that they'd be getting some money from the person who owns the product for advertising in the movie.
Good point.
That does help.
It does help.
Yeah, if they want to.
Yeah, I think there was another one where they were looking at some newspaper clippings in one of the scenes, and one of them had chili dog
the two for the
voucher.
price of one or something or other, or
Yeah.
unlimited, no expiry date or something or other.
And that's another example of what I was talking about. That they another product placement that they made up for this movie. So there was, the only product so they had to make up a few fake product placements because I mentioned they were trying.
You can't have a fake product placement.
Yeah,
It's a fake product placement is not a product placement.
true.
But they had to make up fake names on
Yeah.
some of the containers and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they weren't advertising somebody else's gear because they might get annoyed that they had their product in their movie and stuff.
Yeah.
It gets
Yeah.
really deep.
Yeah. Yeah, product placement is a bit funny when you think about it. Like, I know this is a separate subject, but in Demolition Man, originally when they were going to Taco Bell, that they changed it to Pizza Hut. They dubbed it in and changed the logos.
The original movie had Taco Bell signs around the place, and they actually said the word Taco Bell. A later version of it had the close-up signs of Taco Bell saying Pizza Hut, but the signs in the far background you could still see as Taco Bell, and they'd they layered redid the vocals for the syllables. When they say Taco Bell, they'd say Pizza Hut. The same amount of syllables. They did it. Why? It was well after the movie was made.
And won't Taco Bell have something to say about the product placement being replaced?
I just don't know why they bother. That costs money to change it.
Yeah,
And why would you do it when it's already been in the theatres and already released on DVD with Taco Bell in it? So
yeah,
why
it's
change
a
it?
very big confusing thing that sort of thing is.
But yeah,
I can't work that out even if how much I tried. I mean, I thought that wouldn't the actual restaurant have something to say about
possibly
this?
But actually, just one other product place just before we go. I think in Men in Black, they had a spaceport in the Men in Black's compound. All the aliens coming through, and I think they had McDonald's or the Burger King in the background.
Yeah, they did.
Well, they had to eat somewhere, I suppose. Aliens get
Well,
packaged
it
up
is
along
a
flight.
spaceport after all,
Yes.
and if you go to any airline, they often do have the odd restaurant here and there before you head off into on.
Well, they'll come in. They after a long flight. Other galaxy. They want a burger and fries. Like they actually eat our food. But anyway, it was interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But anyway, it's we almost finished. Or?
Yeah, I just want to sit down. Okay, are you ready to rate this movie?
Look, honestly, taking everything into consideration, that Eli's first attempt at the feature film, and then looking at the film itself, the cinema work, the audio, storyline, look, I'd have to give it a 9. I mean, I know I keep giving lots of things 9s, 9.5s, and whatever. I might even go 9.5 this one because I really enjoyed it. It is funny without being stupid.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there, and I think I give this movie a 9 too. So,
now remember, it's called Tucker and Dale versus Evil 2010. Now you probably can still buy a copy of it somewhere. You may get it through Amazon or your local DVD store or whatever. So have a look around. It's a good watch. You like parody horror, comedy horror, this be right up your alley. I think it's hilarious.
Agreed. Yeah, for those who like watching those old slasher movies, this one will give you a run for your money.
Yeah, but either way, if you don't like comedy horror, I'd say still give it a go because you will think about Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all the real horror movies, slasher movies, and say, oh yeah, I can see where that came from.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at those old slasher movies, some of them look rather cheesy and may not be remembered up to this point. But
well, some don't.
Some you don't.
Today it's really important. And now it's thrown out. Next week it's thrown out in the garbage. It's because they don't have any staying power. This here is a good staying power movie. I think.
Yes, I agree with Mike on this one. So, you guys go out and probably buy a copy or download a copy if you can,
Well,
or
no,
download or buy it
I would say
online.
if you're going to download it from Amazon, if you can buy a copy online that way
Mm-hmm.
legally.
Legally, yes.
Look, if you need to download movies at some stage or rather just to look at something and you don't want to commit to buying something you don't know anything about, yeah, okay, download it if you like, have a look, but then go and buy the original because the more people who buy the original copies, they're supporting the film industry, and the guys who are actually making these movies need the money so they can make more movies.
Agreed.
And you can't say, oh, yeah, Universal Studio won't miss a
Yeah.
few dollars. But if everybody in the world did that, Universal Studios would have to close their doors.
We
So,
wouldn't
yeah,
want that, do we?
you know, they make good movies, and same as Buena Vista and all the other good guys. The big guys have to make money, and the little guys have to make money.
Yeah, remember the little
Yeah.
guys in independent filmmakers. They're looking to you to make movies a little bit more better.
Yeah, and without that money, no one's going to make any movies. So yeah, if you're not sure,
Yeah.
download a copy,
Yeah.
check
Think
it out,
about it,
and then
guys.
not try before you buy, but buy to help them out because the industry, in some ways, especially for independents, does struggle a bit.
Yes. So think about this, guys. We're asking you just to think about it.
Be mindful of it.
So I'm gonna say goodbye. So I'll see you guys next time. Same bat time, same witch hour. Till then, unpleasant dreams. See you around, guys.